Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Do you have any doubt regarding yesterday's class? Anyone? Yes, no?
No, ma'am.
No.
Okay, so today what we are going to discuss is mostly known to you, if not totally. So if it is totally known to you, in that case we will move on quickly. So it depends. So all of you have studied algorithm just in the last semester. So everything is probably still in your memory, fresh. So let us start with sorting problem. Have I shared the screen? No, I guess. Please remind me, okay? I am very much forgetful, so I keep on forgetting things. So today we are starting sorting problem. Basically, we are going to discuss about quick sort only. So if I tell that it is sorting is actually one kind of permutation problem. Sorting equivalent to permutation problem. I hope you will agree, right? It is one kind of permutation given some elements, some set of elements, say k1, k2 to kn. We need to find one specific permutation such that k of say p1 less or equals to k of p2 less or equals to k of pn, where this pi is permutation and ki's are the elements, and we are doing in increasing order. Now, as if we say that it is a permutation problem, permutation means we have factorial n number of possibilities. So it is supposed to be a very complex problem, right? This many number of possibilities. So if we had to explore all factorial n number of possibilities, what should be the complexity?
Exponential.
Yeah. But is it so in practical case?
No, ma'am.
No. So actually, although it is a specific kind of permutation problem, but we have given some condition. This is our condition. So this is our condition, and given this condition, it will not take exponential time because we don't have to explore all possible factorial n permutations. Now, and we all know, probably you know lower bound theory, right? Have you heard of this? I
Like,
think.
Comparisons or n log n.
Sorry?
What is it? Comparisons or base sorting algorithm is n log n. Theta of n log n.
Yeah.
At least.
So, according to our lower bound theory, we know that for comparison based sorting, we need lower bound as n log n, right? So lower bound we represent in terms of this omega, which is what it is called. Okay, this is big omega notation and it represents the
Best case.
lower bound. Yeah. Not necessarily best case.
Yes, ma'am. Lower bound. Sorry. Yes, lower bound. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So this is lower bound theory. This is for comparison based sorting techniques. Now, if you, sorry, I'm using over this. Oh, then what should I do? Should I create a new page?
You can just go right, ma'am.
So right this side.
I mean, up to you, ma'am. But yeah, right is fine.
No, this is maybe you can see it later. No, that's why I'm asking for your opinion. What will be more beneficial for you?
Yeah, you can put a line and continue and try it if it's not going down, right?
Okay. So maybe I have to do this. So if you recall your last sem, you tell me which of our, okay, first is what was the type of sorting algorithm? Very, just be little bit quick.
Bubble sort,
Type,
insertion sort, selection sort.
not in this way. You tell by the
Oh.
classes algorithm. You know this. Sort by, bubble sort is exchange, right? Then sort by insertion, selection, merging. What else? Anything is left?
Partition.
Partitioning.
Partitioning means you want to mean quick sort.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Pivoting about the point. And then
Merging is this. You give us. If we take example, this is obviously merge sort. Selection if this is straight. Selection sort. Straight. Insertion sort. Insertion. What else is insertion? Tail sort is there. Exchange, I'll put bubble and quick here. You could have argued with me that why this quick is inside this category and not in merge. But here I prefer to put it inside this exchange because exchange is the most basic operation in quick sort and it doesn't do blind kind of merging. What is happened in case of merge sort. That's why I prefer to put it inside this exchange category. And another is this special purpose. Where you can put all this counting, radix, etc. Now, for all this, we know that the special purpose techniques are not comparison based, so we can straightforward do not consider these things. Now, if we consider only this part, the best complexity is which of the algorithms have best worst case complexity that is matching with our lower bound theory?
Merge sort.
Merge sort. And okay, here selection heap is also there. Heap will
Heap
come
sort
under
also.
selection. So this 2 has omega of, no, I should not write omega here, it is actually order theta of n log n. Why I erased omega and wrote theta?
That's
It means
case.
Yes.
theta's average case, ma'am. It's like when you write
Both
this,
upper and
both the
lower
upper
bound.
and lower
Lower
are
bound is n
bounded.
log n, yeah.
Saloni, you are right, but who said average case? I'm going to scold you very nicely.
Theta is upper bound, right?
Both upper bound
Both
and lower
bound
bound are
between two.
same. That's why we can use theta here. But it is not average case.
Yes, ma'am. Sorry, ma'am.
Don't never use this average case with correspondence to this theta or any big O or omega. Average case is totally different, and in randomized algorithm, you are actually going to deal with lots of average case calculation. Okay, but
What does the straight mean? Straight insertion sort, straight selection sort.
straight, this straight. Yeah,
Yep.
this straight is actually nothing. It is the what should I say? Straight is the basic algorithm that was given first in this category of insertion sort. That
The
we call
blind
it.
one.
Huh?
The blind one, right?
Blind one. Yeah, it is blind one. But straight is actually without any modification. Later insertion sort, selection sort, these are very old algorithms. There are several modifications over the original algorithm. But we are not considering those modifications. Rather, we are considering only the original algorithm. That's why it is mentioned as straight. Straight implies that this is the original algorithm given by the developer who has developed this insertion sort algorithm. Okay, another question comes from this. What do you think is the most natural kind of sorting technique? This is another Viva question. Which one is most natural?
Could you repeat it again?
Bubble sort.
Bubble sort. Okay. And most natural sorting technique. Bubble sort is, to some extent, it is natural. I agree.
Selection sort.
Not selection sort.
Insertion, no?
You are not going to try everything, right?
Hopefully not.
Okay, what do you think? Is it insertion?
Yes, no.
Okay, yeah. This one is, this then you
What do
can
you-
consider as natural.
means it comes intuitively. Is that what you mean by natural?
Yeah, most natural means intuitively what we do. This one is most intuitive. If you remember your days before this COVID, where you had to give these answer sheets and your teachers had to arrange them in proper order, they did is what is called this insertion sort. And when you swap the cards, if you have played the card game, then also you have used this insertion sorting technique only. That is actually the most natural one. Bubble sort is also to some extent natural, where you put the maximum one in the end and then you keep on arranging. So these two are more natural. Okay, let us come to business. This is not our business so far. Am I allowed to scroll down? Yeah. Okay. Okay, so quick short is not belonging to any of these categories. It is an artificial or not a natural kind of technique. It doesn't have the preferred lower bound, but if you all remember that you have studied it to be having average case as good as the worst case. Which is very important because mostly average case, sorry, I'm not writing it properly. Actually, I'm writing in reverse. So mostly in most algorithms, average case is as good as worst case. But in this case, for quick short, this is not true. We get average case as equivalent to the lower bound. Now you tell me what is average case? What do you mean by average case?
Basically, like you perform the algorithm over, like let's say a bigger size over like multiple runs of the algorithm over different sequences of size n, and then the expected value it takes basically. Like,
Okay, multiple
that will
runs.
be of the order. That's
Expected
what.
value. How many runs?
That it will be a large number, typically large number. That's it.
Only large number we can say that it is going to be average case if we run for a large number of possibilities.
So,
Average
generally, like
case
only when like okay.
for a given
By
array, you can say
definition,
average.
it will be by definition it will be large n, but
Have
when you perform it experimentally, like, we have to perform it by log n time, large number of times.
Okay, no, that what you are telling is from your experimental idea. By definition,
Maybe like we give every input and then we average the outputs gotten for each input.
yeah, that is the average case. So what is theoretically you can tell some result as average case only if by theory at least you can prove that you have done all possible, you have run the algorithm over all possible variations of input and then taken the output or complexity for each of the cases and then calculated the average of the cases and found it. If that is at least theoretically you have done that, then only you can claim that that is your average case. Otherwise you can't say that is your average case. Okay, that can be like a general case or maybe some experimental case, but that is not average case. So average case means basically you have to do compute for all possibilities of input. Here all is important, and obviously if you take probability distribution of each of the input variation as same, then this average case is expected case with uniform probability or probability 1 by n for each of the cases. Right. 1 by n for every case. So if I say that probability is not 1 by n, then that will not be average case, that will be some other expected case. suppose your some input has higher probability of occurrence than the other input. In that case, that will not give you average case. That will give you some expected case with that specific probability. Okay. Now, can anyone tell me what was our quick sort algorithm? What he used to do here? What was the idea?
It's some
Choose an
podcast.
element, and every number which is less than that element, you push it to the left of it, and everything that's greater than, push it to the right, and do the same thing for both halves, both parts.
Okay, so we have a pivot. Say if the pivot is KP, and classically we choose our pivot as the first element, right? So say this is my array. Classically we choose this pivot as the first element. Then what we do? We have 2 pointers, right? This is my array of elements. I will take 2 pointers. If this is pivot, then my first pointer or the left pointer should start after the pivot. This is I, this is J. Now what we do? How we do the?
We check if the element at I is less than. If it is, we swap with the pivot. Yeah.
No.
We swap it with J, ma'am, where that element is greater than the pivot.
Okay. Say here my element under I is Ki. So what first we do? We check Ki with what? Kp or Kj?
Kp, ma'am, it should be greater than Kp. And similarly for
Ki
J, Kj
should
is
be greater than Kp or less than Kp?
greater than Kp, ma'am.
Ki should be greater than Kp.
Basically, if it's greater than, we'll swap it with Kj, and then again continue computing Ki. But if it's less than, we just go to the increment Ki.
Let us go step by step. So first what we do is we take the element under I, say this is Ki, we compare this Ki with Kp. If Ki is less or equals to Kp, we move on, that is we update the pointer. If Ki is less, say we are taking equals to this side, that depends on the implementation. So if Ki is less or equals to Kp, then I++, we just update the pointer, we go to the next element. Else what we do? Suppose it is not true. Otherwise, now say here whatever element was present, this element particularly, here my I has been updated to this position, and this element is greater than Kp. Now what we do?
Swap it with Kj.
Similarly, we'll be doing with Kj, ma'am. And
At the same time or after this?
What do you mean at the same time or after this, ma'am?
Means
Like in the same iteration?
Yeah, in the same iteration or after I have found one point where my condition is not satisfied.
Because it's an if condition, it'll obviously it'll go to the next iteration only, it'll start, because otherwise will only happen if initially itself that condition is
Okay, so what we do first is we check for I for I point, whatever is under ith pointer, we check for that. Then when we find something which is not satisfying my condition, that my condition was everything just on the left side of Kp is supposed to be less or equals to Kp, on the right side supposed to be greater than equals to Kp. So whatever is under K under J, that is Kj, it has to be greater than Kp. So when we find something which is not matching this condition, then we check whether there is something in under this J which is also not matching its condition. So what we do, we check for Kj. So otherwise here actually we stop. So here actually we stop I. Then again here we start with J. So we check Kj with Kp. If Kj is greater than Kp, we just update J to move in this way. So J is going to be minus minus. I is moving in this direction and J will be moving in this direction. So suppose after some time we get some element here where this element is not satisfying this condition. In that case only, so otherwise here we stop this J. Now comes your condition of exchange. So it is not like we are going to exchange at every point. We will exchange when we find something under I which is not satisfying the condition for I, and something under J which is not satisfying the condition for J. So what is the benefit? This element was supposed to be in this direction, and this element was supposed to be in this direction because this one is less than Kp, and this element was supposed to be in this direction because this one is greater than Kp. Now we exchange Ki with Kj, and then again we continue the same thing. Now what is my stopping criteria?
When J is greater than I.
When J is greater than I. Okay, yeah.
J is less than I, no?
And
I mean, until J is greater than I, still continue.
okay, J cannot be, J is always greater than I. So here J is less than I is the condition. When J has moved this side, if we come to some point like here where I has moved in this direction and J has moved in this direction, this will be my stopping criteria. So where should I write? Stopping criteria. Okay. When J is less than 9, then what we do, whatever we have found in the before the ith position, that forms my left part. After that we put the Kp. So if this is my position, then actually all the elements here, whatever elements have come in this direction, in this side, this is going to be my left half, not half, left partition. Then I will put Kp here, and the remaining elements I am going to put here. So whatever is under, whatever this after J, this will be my right partition. Whatever was before I, that will be my left partition, and between them I am going to put Kp. And then the process will be followed for each of these partitions. That is the quick short algorithm proposed by Hoare. I don't know how you pronounce it. This was the person who proposed this algorithm. He mentioned about the scheme. This scheme was already mentioned, but how you are going to deal with the partition, that he has not mentioned. So that was up to you. So if you follow, maybe you have followed Foreman's book. So in the Foreman's book, first this scheme was not written. There it is given just like more short, and later probably in remarks section or some section is there where they used to explain the things. There it is written that how this original algorithm was given. So that's why I don't put this quick sort technique under this what it is called, sort by merging, because here we are not blindly partitioning, we are not blindly merging. There is intelligent partition, and merging is also not blind. Okay. Now this is the algorithm, and if you have used this recurrence tree, then maybe you remember that even if we had a very bad partitioning, suppose my partitioning is something like this, say this is say 1/10 of n is on this side, my kp is here, and all my elements are this side. 9/10 of n elements are this side. This is a special case. Now what is going to be the complexity for this case? Can you tell me?
Every time, like 1/10 of 10th of the elements comes to the left side, and 9/10 comes to the right side. Is that what you mean?
Okay, if we draw the tree, how it will look? Here, say here we have Cn, here Cn/10, here 9Cn/10, and in this way I am going to draw the tree. This is recurrence tree, right? Now, after some time, these will reach theta of 1. Now, can anyone tell me which height will be larger, this side or this side? Left side or right side?
The right side will.
Right side will be larger.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So, say this is, I don't have space to write here. Say this is my H2, this is my H1. So here H1 is what? What will be the value of H1? Log of? Hey, you know.
Base.
Log base 10n.
Yeah, exactly. And here?
Log base 10/9.
10/9. Yeah, 10/9 n. And as this is log, both cases, so what will be our complexity? Say complexity is Tn, so what will be our Tn's value? Equals to what?
H1 times theta of 1 plus H2
N.
minus 1 that will be need to take. It will be H1 times theta of 1, ma'am, first of all.
It'll be
And
n
then
log
like
n.
the excess height.
Okay.
It
Yeah, it
complicated.
will,
Then it
it
will
will
be
be,
here n log n as this.
okay. If we take less or equals to
It will
both
be the
sides, so
excess height.
if this one is small,
It will be greater than
then
H1.
can I write this?
That will be greater than H1.
C1 into this C2 into n log 10 by 9n. Will you agree if I write this? Is it okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So in any case, we can write this as theta of n log n, because this whatever is this base, we can take that as constant and we can add with this C2 and making a new constant. So it will again come to this log n only. That is the benefit of using this asymptotic notation. You can simply skip the basis for log and you can give the set, value of set or the identification of the set. So this actually gives us an idea that even if the partitioning is very bad, then also our algorithm will give us complexity in n log n only. So if suppose this is 1 by n, it could have happened like it is 1 by 100 and 99 by 100 was on the other side. Then also this is going to give you only n log n as your complexity, right? Because in NP phase we are going to get a tree like this. So one side will be having that log with smaller base and one side will be having log with larger base, and you are going to get n log n only. So worst case happens only for worst case probability is what? When worst case happens, worst case in time until. Now what is the probability? If we have n as the number of elements, we have how many number of possibilities? Factorial n.
Yes, ma'am.
Say, okay, so n elements means factorial n number of input variance. Now, what is the worst case probability? Among this factorial n, what exactly are the worst cases?
When we do partition, all the elements are greater than the pivot or lesser than the pivot.
So they are also
That happens every
actually in
time.
some order.
Yes, ma'am. So every time when we pick the pivot, if it's the greatest or the smallest element, I think that will be the worst case.
Yeah, that essentially means that whenever our array is in some order, it can be in increasing order or it can be in decreasing order. So whenever they are in some order, we are going to get worst case only. So exactly two such possibilities are there, either they are in increasing order or they are in decreasing order. So what is the worst case for probability then? 2 by factorial n, right? So this is my worst case probability. You can understand that if my n is sufficiently large, this is very small. So most of the time we are not going to get worst case. So from this actually, from this realization that our worst case probability is actually very small, this randomized algorithm came that which tries to totally avoid the worst case. So in case of randomized quickshot, what we do is we avoid the worst case. Okay, if I ask you why quickshot is called really quick, what will be your answer? Quickshot is actually even better than merge shot. If you remember doing your experimental analysis, you could have seen that this was giving you better result even for if you take for all possible input variance, then it is surely going to give you better result than even merge shot. If you remember what was the reason then it is fine. Otherwise, I can just say that in case first one is we have rare worst case possibility. For quick short, it is probability is only 2 by factorial n. That is one plus point. Another plus point is in case of merge sort we do blind partitioning, whereas for quick sort we do intelligent partitioning. And third is for mask sort, what we do is we compare every element with other elements. But in case of quick sort, what we do is we compare two elements only when one of them is pivot. So if you see this, here what we have been doing, we compared the elements whichever which is under ki or under kj only with the pivot. In no other case we are comparing between the elements. So here less number of comparison will be there. That is the most crucial point for this algorithm to have less complexity. In practical case, so if you remember this some variant of the default sorting technique, whatever is there, that is one version of randomized quick sort mostly, and in every case it is mostly quick sort only. Okay, so this is the reason.
Are you sure that there's only two worst case possibilities and those two are only when there's ordering? What if there's like completely ordered except like two elements?
That will not give you this. Even that is almost similar to quick sort, but that will not give you that. That is all similar to worst case. That will not give you worst case. You can be sure of it. Because see, suppose what you are telling is, suppose say these are my
Like
elements
1 to
which
3
are
until 100, but only last two elements, like 100 till 1, but maybe only the last two elements are like 1 and 2 instead of 2 and 1.
say 1 and 2. Say okay. So can we take an example? So you are telling, say here we had, how do I write? Say 1 and 2 is there. These are the two elements. These are in order. After that, they are only arbitrarily placed, all the other elements. Say we have here in minus 2 elements, all these elements are arbitrarily placed. This is what you are telling, right?
No, ma'am. No. N minus 2 elements are in order and 2 elements are like swapped.
N minus 2 elements are in order and 2 elements are not in order. Okay, just the reverse one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you are telling, say I have 1, 2 in this way, say 98. These are my sequence. After that, probably maybe here. What I will take. Okay, some element probably, say here again 1 is there, or say 0 is there. Some elements are there which are not in order. Sometimes something like this you are telling, and I am taking one as my pivot. So when we take 1, what will happen is it will be placed in this position itself, and no, for all these parts I will, so if we take I here and J here, so here itself it is going to get violated, then J will come, J here is 0 will come here, right? There will be swap between this. So 1, 0, 2 will come here, and the remaining elements are here. 1 after this probably we don't have to bother about this part, right? That's all. So what happened is after few iterations, some other swapping will also be there. So in some way this order will be broken. After few iterations, exactly I can't tell how many iterations that I have to probably calculate. But after some iteration, if you do, you will understand that the order has been broken and it will be behaving like this randomized quicksort. So it will avoid the. Okay. Yeah.
Ma'am,
Yeah.
ma'am, can you repeat like how we have lesser comparisons in quicksort?
Okay. See here what we have been doing. Here we took this KP, our pivot, we took 2 pointers I and J, and we checked whatever element was under this I and J to check whether they are greater than KP or less than KP, right? So when we check one element under I, we check this KI with KP. This is one comparison. Now if either it is less than or equals to, it is satisfying the condition or it is not satisfying. So if it is satisfying, it is not going to get again compared. We just move I. Similarly, suppose it is not satisfying to the condition. Then what we do is stop at that position, say this is my position. Here again we take another element, we compare with KP. So again under J, whatever element is there, we are comparing with KP. Suppose we come to some element which is not satisfying the condition, then we get say one element here and another element here. There is no comparison between these two elements. We have just decided from this comparison. Here is one comparison and here is another comparison. And in every case, this comparison is only with KP. We compare two elements only when one of them is pivot. Okay, so after we have got two elements which are not in order, we just exchange them. We don't compare between them again. So that's why there is only comparison with the pivot. But in every other algorithm, there is comparison between every pair of elements, which is not the case for quicksort. That's why here we have less number of comparisons. Is it okay? Have you understood?
Yes, ma'am.
If you think of bubble sort, there we have compared between every pair of elements. You remember that we checked with the next element. We do if it is less or equals to, then we'll do something. If it is not in order, we'll exchange them or we'll do some other operation. In this way, we normally operate. But in this particular algorithm, that is the role of the pivot. It guides us to put the elements in order. Okay, so in randomized quicksort, I told you that what we do is we avoid worst case. We used random number here. So again, if you choose random number, you have to choose a uniformly distributed or a number which is following uniform distribution. So you have to choose all. Our consideration is all inputs are equally likely. All inputs are equally likely. If we take this, that means we are following probability as uniform. That is every case probability is okay. Yeah, this is going to be 1 by n only. This is obviously you can understand. For to happen this, we have to take uniformly distributed random number Rn. This we have to take. If there is any other probability distribution, we can't consider that random number for our randomized quickstart analysis. So this is one consideration. What else is there? Now, if we take all inputs are equally likely and we choose pivot also as a random number, what will happen is we imply that all possible partitioning we are considering. So first consideration is all inputs are equally likely and any element can be chosen as pivot, which implies basically to make this possible we do what is we choose our pivot as a random number. So pivot is what is called uniformly at random. How do I write it? Uniform random number. So given these two considerations, that is all inputs are equally likely and any element can be chosen as pivot, these two considerations implies that all possible partitioning are considered. So in every case, what could have happened? If you take one specific distribution of inputs, then you have to check for every possible partitioning, taking each of the elements as pivot. Then that was for one particular distribution. Now you could have taken any other distribution. For any other distribution also, you could have followed the same way, that is consider all possible partitioning, taking each of the elements as pivot. And for all these cases together, if you analyze, you are going to get the average case of the quickstart analysis. And this is totally a complicated thing. You can understand, you have to take every distribution, and for every distribution you have to consider every possible partitioning. So we avoid all these things by considering that all inputs are equally likely. This is first consideration. Second consideration is our pivot itself is a uniformly distributed random number. So any element can come as our pivot. So if we consider the expectation of the pivot, where the pivot itself is a random number, we are going to get the average case analysis for all possible partitioning of every possible distribution. So this is my consideration. So after this consideration, the algorithm is exactly same. You have done all that. So I'm not writing the algorithm. We are going for the analysis. So here, what is my analysis? First, my claim is, I'm going to claim something. Claim is maximum amount of time is taken by the partitioning scheme. Amount of time is determined by the partitioning scheme. This is my claim number 1. Do you agree? If we do the partitioning, after we have done the partitioning, there is nothing else to be done. That is the claim. So whatever computation we are doing that while doing the partition. That is the claim number 1. If you agree, then yeah. So this is claim number 1. Second claim is also, I hope you will agree, that in case of partitioning, the comparison is the most costly operation. So while we do the partitioning, we have what? We have to update our variables, that is the pointers I and j, and for every element under I and j, we are going to compare that element with the pivot. That is our task in the partitioning. And then we have some exchange also. That is, some amount of exchange will also be there, but exchange is just swapping of elements, means just change of the position, right? So this is one time step operation, and we are claiming that maximum amount or the determining factor of partitioning is how many elements are going to get compared with the pivot. So these are my claims, and we are going to calculate the time according to this claim. Now say xij is a random variable that represents the whether this I and j, these elements are how do I tell it? Here, if I and j, if xi and if two elements are compared, then that operation I represent it as a random variable, and that random variable is my xij. So xij is a random variable that indicates, we call it as indicator variable, that indicates whether two elements I, j are compared. Now this element has a specific name. This kind of element has a specific name. It is called indicator variable. It is just like a flag you can think of. Whenever two elements are compared, we just increase the value of the flag. Indicator or flag variable. So what will be our total cost? So our total number of comparisons will be x. If we take x as the sum over all possible values of xij, so this is xij, say j equals to I plus 1 to n, and I equals to 1 to n minus 1. All possibilities are covered. Have I covered all possibilities? Or 0 to n minus 1 will also do. No, maybe we are starting with 1 only, 1 to n. Yeah, that is fine. So if we take I from 1 to n minus 1 and j from I plus 1 to n, we are basically covering every pair. So that can be the maximum number of comparisons. Now what will be our cost, that is expected value of this x, that will give you the average case. So the average case or expected case, expected cost, this is E of x, that is E over this. E over this means we know the linearity of expectation, so E will come inside. I am skipping one step. Now, have you done all these things before? I'm just asking.
No,
Anyone?
ma'am, we haven't.
Then that is fine. Otherwise, I will be speaking only on nothing. Okay. So, is it clear why we are doing this and what we are doing? Because this is quickshot is more basic than the other algorithm you are going to learn here. what we do here is first we take a random variable that indicates a pivot. Now if we take the distribution of the values or the distribution of the input also as a random number, so and those random numbers are actually uniformly distributed, so that implies that we are actually indicating that if we take the expectation over the random value, every possible cases of partitioning we are covering. Now that is the theory. Now how we compare, how we find the result of what is the value for the expectation? We take indicator variable. That indicator variable indicates whether two elements are actually compared or not. And we have claimed that our comparison is the most costly operation. So whatever will be the amount of comparison, that is whatever will be the expected value of that indicator variable for all possible cases, that will give you the idea of the average case. So that indicator variable is xij, and x is the total amount of comparison for a specific pivot, that is specific random number. Now if we take the random number over uniform distribution, we don't have to take the probability for individual variable. Now in that case, expectation over that random number will give you the average case. So we consider E of x. E of x, now E of x goes to inside this, so E of xij. Now what is expectation of a random variable? You know what is that? Probably in school you have learned these things. Expectation of a random variable means what? We have to take 1 into the probability of occurrence of that event plus 0 into the probability of not occurring or probability that event is not occurred. So that is the expected value. So here what we have to do is we have to take again this 1 to n minus 1, j equals to I plus 1 to n. E of xj means 1 into probability that what is this event? I and j are compared, so say ki is compared with kj plus 0 into probability that ki is not compared with kj. I am here using this shortcut, but you don't use that for your paper. That is the benefit of being a teacher. You can write many things, but you are not allowed to write. So this is 0, so we can skip this part. We can consider only this part. So I equals to 1 to n minus 1, j equals to I plus 1 to n. 1 into probability of this value, that is probability of this value itself. Probability of ki is compared with kj. Now you tell me what is this probability. How many number of elements are there between ki to kj?
j minus I plus 1.
J minus I plus 1. And when, how many times they are going to get compared?
Either I is the pivot or k is the pivot only then.
Exactly. Very good. Yeah. So we can say that this event is nothing but probability that ki and ki is compared with kj means probability that ki is a pivot plus, so it is OR, and these events are mutually exclusive, so we can write it as plus probability that kj is a pivot.
Explain this part again. on that indicator.
But neither won't be the pivot, no, ma'am, because like we are taking the first element to be the pivot, and that's why we wrote I is from 1 to n minus 1.
Yeah, but here we are considering expectation. No, expectation means what? We are considering all possibilities. So either this can happen or that can happen, but in together everything has happened for all possibilities. If you take the whole scenario,
Ma'am, like why are we taking like I is from 1 to n minus 1, ma'am?
1 to n minus
Not bad.
to consider all pair of possibilities of I and j. I and j are two different elements. Now what can be the value of I and j? I and j have to be different. That is the one condition. And how many pairs are there? We are considering all possible pairs of I and j.
Can I explain the whole thing from that indicator variable?
Okay. From where?
From that indicator, I didn't understand after the total number of comparisons part.
Okay, from here. Average case. From here onwards.
Yeah, from there.
Okay. Let me have some water then. I'm already tired. Okay. Yeah. See, total number of comparison. This one you have agreed.
Yeah, ma'am, that is clear. That is clear. Xij is the count of number of times ki and kj compared, right?
And x is all possible values of sum over all possible values of xij. So we are considering all possibilities, not taking any restrictions. All possibilities we are going to cover. Now, as xij is a random variable, we have taken random distribution of inputs. So what we have to do is we have to take the expected value for the random distribution. That expected value will imply that we are considering all possible partitioning over all possible distribution of inputs. So this here you understand that there are two all possible terms I am using. First is all possible partitioning, that is this xi and xj. Whatever is that can be any arbitrary element, any pair of elements we are going to consider, and that pair of elements can happen for any distribution of input. So whole this thing can be covered only if you consider the expectation over the x, because here x is considering all possible pairs of xij. So if you consider E of xij, expected value of x, capital X, that will give you the expectation for all possible partitioning over any arbitrary distribution. Okay. So we take E of x. Now this is just E of xij means xi is compared with or say ki is compared with kj. So probability of E of any event, this comes from the definition. This is from linearity of expectation. This comes from
what is the meaning of E of xij?
E of xij, expected the event that xij happens, that is the element ki is compared with kj, expected value of that event, that is called E of xij.
Over all possible partitions on all random.
Yeah. Whenever you are considering expectation, that means you are considering all possibilities actually.
Okay.
That's why this possibility is measured in terms of probability. There is no other way. Only probability is we can consider that what is the probability of happening of that event and what is the probability that that particular event has not happened. That will give you the expectation value. So
Yeah,
this comes from the definition of Ex. E of z, say any random variable z. So this comes from the definition. Now zero part we can directly remove.
What is PR?
What? PR is probability. PR implies probability. We normally represent probability using PR. Okay, just like this. This is power set. P of, if I say P of X, this means power set of X.
Okay.
Okay, these are the general used symbols, mathematical terms or symbols. Okay, now PR of K, probability that Ki is compared with Kj, this is the event that we are going to consider. Now for our quick shot analysis, we know that two elements are compared only when one of them is pivot. Now this one of them is pivot, that this either Ki is pivot or Kj is pivot. So one of them is pivot. This is actually consisting of two mutually exclusive events. So I am distributing the event actually here. That is, I am dividing it into two parts, where one part is when Ki is pivot, another part is Kj is pivot. I am using plus because only one of them is pivot at a time, and the events are mutually exclusive. Now is it clear?
Yeah, ma'am. Clear.
Okay. So after that, if one of them is pivot, what is the probability that one of them is pivot? There is only one pivot for every case. So, and how many number of elements we have here in between I and j? So what will be our probability? This is now, from now onward, this is straightforward calculation. J plus 1 when say Ki is pivot. So from the set of elements Ki to Kj, how many number of elements are there?
J minus I plus 1.
J minus I plus 1. Okay. So how many of them can be pivot?
K minus I plus 1.
At a time, how many of them are pivot?
One.
One element.
So what is the probability?
2 by J minus I plus 1.
This is right.
Yeah, ma'am.
See, you people
Ma'am, could
are
you-
doing the calculation actually. Yeah,
Ma'am.
tell me.
Can you explain why you're taking only in the range of j minus I plus 1?
You can take instead of, I am taking here I and j, and I am taking all possible pairs of I and j. So this is the general terminology of using all possible pairs, right? And starting from I equals to 1 to n minus 1, so j will be I plus 1.
No, that is fine, ma'am. In the denominator, you took j minus I plus 1, right?
Yeah. So how many elements
I
are
didn't
there?
understand that.
Inside?
N elements are there.
No. Here, inside one particular event we are considering, no, whether xi and xj are compared or not. So how many elements are there? All possible values of xi and xj within that range, right? So how many elements can we have there between xi and xj?
Ma'am, even that in that event, like the pivot can be outside the I to J range, ma'am.
No. How can? We are taking ki and kj is compared. Ki and kj can be compared when either ki or kj is pivot. So these elements have to be inside that range.
Either, see, ma'am, I understand that either ki or kj has to be pivot, ma'am. But after that, I don't understand how you are telling that the possible number is like j minus I plus 1.
We are taking.
Ma'am, xi is, yes, ma'am, sorry.
Yeah, tell me.
K can be compared even when the other element It can be anything other than Ki. The whole number space.
No,
Yeah,
can you
that
again
means
explain why you're taking j minus I plus 1, ma'am?
Someone of you already told me that how many number of elements are there inside this range. We
Yeah,
are
but why
taking,
are we considering inside that range?
because here we are
You take
taking one particular event, no?
linearity of expectation.
Ma'am?
See, this is outside the range. Inside we are taking individual event here. Either Ki is pivot or Kj is pivot. Now this range is already there outside. This is already there.
Maybe it'd be clear if you define the what the event is.
The
Yes,
event
can
is
you again
Ki
define what Xij is?
is compared with Kj. That is the event.
Yes, ma'am. So if Ki is compared with Kj is the event, why is the number of elements between I and j becoming an issue here? Either Ki can be pivot or Kj can be pivot.
Yeah. What
Ma'am,
is the
maybe you can
probability?
give an example like with I and j in some array.
How do I give an example? Okay. I don't know. You tell me some array.
1, 2,
See,
3, 4,
here
5.
what we are doing is we are comparing all possible values. So this j and I, these are variables only. You can take any of the values from this range, 1 to n minus 1 and I plus 1 to n. You can put them here, and that will give you a specific case. Yeah, 150. So what else?
for any given like I comma j, like what will be the total number of elements, ma'am? N or just between the I and j?
Between I and j, no? We are comparing between two elements.
But still the other elements are present, no, ma'am.
Yeah, they are present. That's why we are taking this. We are taking all possibilities of I and j. Other elements are present, but they are not getting compared at the same time, right? But they will be compared somewhere later. For that, we are taking the sum for each of the pairs. This summation value, this is very important. You understand that. You can take any of the value of I and j from this range, and you can get this probability value is going to change whenever we are changing the value of j and I.
Does an I and j mean that it is in partition I from I till j, ma'am?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's in the partition from I till j. That is the size of the partition. Okay. Now we have told me something I can explain. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. Maybe in this way this will be better. So in this case we can consider that Ki to Kj, this is one partition. This you don't like you don't get confused this I and j with the what it is called. The pointer values of our algorithm, that those I and j and these I and j, they are not same. Okay. So this is one partition you can think of, and inside this partition, whatever, how many possibilities are there that Ki and Kj can get compared. So inside this is one, if this is my partition, so how many elements are there that I have to take. So suppose we have, say, small k number of elements. So as I am choosing my pivot uniformly at random, that means I have 1 by k number of possibility of choosing any of them as pivot. So this comes from the probability of choosing any element as pivot where ki to kj is my size of the partition. Or these many number of elements are there. Among the elements, how many, how we can choose one element as pivot. Is it okay now?
Yes, ma'am.
Is it in your own language? No?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So if you are happy with it, so we can little bit simplify it in terms of k. In that case, what we can get I equals to 1 to n minus 1. Say k equals to 2 to n. How we can change that value? Anyone can help me? Instead of j, now we are going to use k. So j was I plus 1 to n. For k, what will be the value? J minus I plus 1. Okay, yeah, I'm right on it. So it is 2 to n, where k equals to j minus I plus 1. I hope you are not disagreeing with me here. This is just basic calculation. So if we get this, now can anyone guess what we are going to do here? This 1 by k or 2 by k, these are like, if you remember calculus, we have been using such kind of forms. Is it looking similar to you? You can take the 2 outside also. We can do this integration, right? As it is from 2 to n, if we take range from 1 to n, this will be actually larger value. So this is actually lesser or equals to this value. And this, you know, it is going to be log n only. So we can write it is 2n minus 1, 2 into log of n, which will give you again, what is this value? N minus 1. There is no I inside it, 2 log n will come outside, and this is going to be 1. I equals to 1 to n minus 1. So this is actually what? We are adding 1 for 1 to n minus 1 term. So it is n minus 1, right? N minus 1 into log n. Write it as beta of n log n. So that's why we can claim that randomized algorithm, randomized quicksort algorithm is going to give us expected value not more than beta of n log n. That's why average case complexity is going to be this only. So that's it from my side for today. If you have any further confusion, I'm open to discussion even today or maybe after you have a look on this again and ask me in the next class, whatever is preferred by you.
Yeah, ma'am, we'll have a look at it after class.
Okay. Okay then. Anything else?
No.